I always love it when I get on here and I dress up looking like someone's rich aunt, but I'm not even mad about it because who wouldn't want to be the rich aunt? Which is funny and very ironic given the topic of this video. Capitalism, baby. Let's talk about it. I do not dream of labor. I do not have a dream job. If you've been on the internet this past week, I'm sure that is something that you've been seeing everywhere, and it's interesting and I want to unpack that. In this video we will be discussing why people don't dream of labor, why people do not seem to subscribe to the notion of having a dream job anymore, how did we get here, and where do we go from here. I'm being very brief and very quick because this is going to be a long one, so get a snack, hop on. I want my paints, my acrylic paints that I continue to put on my face, and let's just get into it. Also, just before we get into anything, can we just appreciate that I am for once filming at daytime? Like, the sun is out. The sun is out. It is the time of day. And I'm not wearing any black. Who is this person? Oh my, I've just reinvented myself, really. So, the dream job. This is something that has been ingrained in our head ever since we were little kids. Growing up in a capitalistic society, ever since you were young, I feel like the first thing you can remember about being in school is someone being like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your dream job? As a kid, you never really thought much about jobs with regard to profit or social capital or like the social standing and the privileges that come with being in certain career paths. Like, for a kid, you'd ask them what job they want to be, and it could be literally anything. Someone would say, I want to be a gardener, I want to be a doctor, and so on and so forth. Kids don't really think about, you know, the implications and decisions of choosing certain career paths. And I always remember when someone mentioned something that wasn't considered prestigious. Someone, for example, was like, I want to be a janitor, I want to be a gardener. You're always told to aim higher and reach for higher and aspire for more, because those jobs just don't make as much money, and you should always aim to make as much money. And from that young age, the seed of capitalism is already planted into our heads. Just from such a young age. What age is that? That's like 4 years old, 5, 6. Just goes to show how deep the system goes. But first, let's unpack this. I don't dream of labor. Like I said, if you have been on the internet as of late, you've definitely seen this ideology floating around. And it's not something entirely recent. It's something that I first came in contact with somewhere in mid-2020, a few months into
the panorama
and a few months into quarantine. I started seeing a rise in this specific ideology. The main purpose of this way of thinking is that you don't have a dream job. Your aspiration is not to be a laborer. You do not want to find your sense of purpose in working or in having a particular job and finding your sense of self-worth and your identity basically in a job or career or whatever those things. And I know there's so much more that goes into the I don't dream of labor mentality, but I'll be looking at it from that point of view, the point of view of the sense of self when it comes to this mentality. Because I really do love talking about the sense of self. I'm kind of self-obsessed and I love thinking about how things affect I as an individual.
Yes, I am me, obviously.
As someone who's always been anti-capitalist myself, it's been interesting to see the growing rise in anti-capitalistic mentalities, especially with the I don't dream of labor thing, which I find is very nothing short of iconic. I hope it sticks, kind of. I'm really into it. I mean, last year we saw the rise of the eat the rich rhetoric when celebrities and rich people were acting up on social media whilst everyone was suffering during a Panasonic Max, and we still are, but they were crying about being stuck in their mansions, and that understandably angered the masses. So
imagine there's no heaven. Easy if you try.
There has been a growing rise in this sentiment, especially, I wouldn't say just now, but probably since the recession, and it's only been building up since, right? The 2007 recession. I should specify. There's been so many. There's been so many. But the 2007 recession. I'm not gonna go into the whole economics of that because money isn't real. Why do we talk about it? It's weird. It's so weird. The whole notion of the dream job, my personal opinion is that it's inherently flawed. The whole idea of it is that this is the one thing that you are aspiring to. That's the main goal. That's the end all be all. That's where you want to get to, which is, thinking about it in face value, there's nothing wrong with that. But from that on early age, that we get the idea that how much money we make is attached to how we're treated. And we also learn that we get our sense of self and our sense of identity through the work that we do or through the jobs that we have. Our value as a human being comes from work, but that's basically where it leads up to. And I feel like during
The panorama.
when we were all forced to stay home, some people were forced to work less hours, whether it be a choice they made or something they were forced to do. Some people had to work from home, which means they kind of had more time on their hands. A lot of people were coming to the conclusion that work isn't what they want to do. The idea of the dream job isn't what they want to spend all their time doing, which is understandable. And a lot of people are just having this realization now, and it's not only just Gen Z or just millennials, people who have even spent years towards putting in like 30 years towards a career, realizing that this isn't what they want to do, this isn't what they want to spend their whole life doing. And they're coming to this realization just now because before they never had the time to think about what they want to do. That's just how a capitalist society works, and that's how it thrives, and those are the conditions that it creates. It keeps you busy so you don't have time to think about these things. You don't have time to think about why you're doing something. You just do it because you have to. You have to put your time in to make money, but you don't have time to think about why you're making this money. What's this money for? How much of this money do you actually get to see? How much is your time worth? You don't have time to think about these big questions because capitalism puts you under so much stress and mental exhaustion that you just have to simply keep going, which is honestly kind of what cults do as well, but that's another story for another day. I have had this paint on my brush for the past 10 minutes. It's basically dry now. Should pull my face. I don't think I'm gonna do anything complicated because I'm trying to talk and think and paint at the same time, which I'm not that good at multitasking. I mean, I know I'm a Capricorn. We're pretty good at everything, but what we came to realize that is in capitalism, labor is not a goal to strive towards, but a necessity burdened under capitalism. It's something that you have to do to survive. None of us choose to work. We have to work, otherwise you can't survive. You can't buy food, you can't buy water, you can't pay your bills and keep lights and heating and all those things. You can't have a roof over your head if you don't work, because you need work and you need money to pay for all these things. Basic human necessities are things that we have to buy, and we buy not only in the currency of money, but with the currency of our time. With this coming realization that in capitalism you basically have to work to survive, the interesting thing is we've seen a rebuttal, like sort of like a opposite towards this with the rise of alternative lifestyles, which I'm so excited to talk about. As of late, since the Panasonic, we've been seeing a growing rise in alternative lifestyles, or I don't know if it's a growing, I think it's both a growing rise in alternative lifestyles and also more people are talking about them. And by alternative lifestyles, I mean tiny living or cottage core or the nomads, like the people who choose to travel around, not actual indigenous nomads, but the white people who like to think they're nomads. But yeah, and that kind of lifestyle. I didn't need to go that hard. I don't mean, it's fine. It's fine if you want to be a nomad and travel around. It's okay, it's okay. You can do that under daddy's trust fund. I won't judge you. Except I will, just a little bit, but I'm allowed to because eat the rich. We've been seeing a lot of talk and people talking about living sustainably, tiny living, living the cottagecore life in a field of wildflowers and disconnecting from modern society and going back to nature and living off the grid, so to say. I'm not always entirely off the grid, but just not subscribing to the conventional capitalist 9-to-5 lifestyle and investing more of your time in not only leisure activities, but self-growth and investing more time in yourself and doing things that build you up as a person instead of going to a job and working for a company or corporation and all that. There's a lot to get into with these lifestyles, the whitewashing that happens in cottagecore, the romanticization of basically farm work, and just how a lot of the people who get into these lifestyles have a safety net under them or have parents that are able and willing to financially support these lifestyles for them to, you know, travel the world and backpack everywhere or live in a cottage in the middle of the woods and not have to think about bills and stuff. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone has the privilege of doing that. Not everyone has the safety net or the assets to do that. It's not that people don't want to live off the land and connect, but we simply can't afford to under the way and the constraints of our society. But I tend to see these alternative lifestyles, even though they're a bit flawed in themselves, but nothing is not flawed, everything has their own flaws, interesting and intriguing, and almost a response to not only the questioning that a lot of us are having living under a capitalistic society, but also going through the pressures of a global pandemic, but also a sort of response to hustle culture.
Hide the money, y'all! There's poor people around! With your broke ass.
Hustle culture and I have beef. Hustle Twitter and I swear to God, if I hear one more person say rise and grind, oh, I'm a pacifist, but I just might throw hands. I'm not trying to implicate myself, but just don't say rise and grind in front of me because I might lose it. Just saying, it's out there, okay? It's a fair warning to anyone who thinks they can say rise and grind in my presence. I have personal beef with Hustle Twitter, but I'll put my biases aside for this one. Those of you who are lucky enough to not ever have encountered Hustle Twitter, God bless your soul. I'm so sorry that I'm about to ruin your life. Or if you've never come into hustle culture, first of all, what rock are you living under and can I please join you? Please, I hate it up here. I hate it so much. It's the worst. What it is basically capitalist propaganda, but that's my biased opinion. Let me give you the real definition. Here it is. And also, basically, hustle culture consists of waking up early, self-help gurus who'll teach you how to make $1 million, and living that CEO lifestyle, and protein powder, so much protein powder. I'm sorry, but you can't protein powder the poverty away. Okay, that's my personal message to hustle. You can't protein powder the poverty away. Stop trying. Anyway, I'm not gonna get heated. I said I wasn't gonna get heated. Let me calm down a little bit. How am I gonna do this without being able to see? But I didn't think about this properly. Oh, my hand is shaking so much. Okay, I don't hate it. I'm just gonna leave that one first and just talk about why hustle culture is literally the worst thing to ever happen to mankind. That's a bold statement. Do I mean it? Partially. Basically, hustle culture is just individuals who subscribe to the idea of making as much of the day as possible, which doesn't sound like a bad thing inherently. Like, yeah, you want to make the most out of your day, but basically they want to spend all the hours of the day to make as much money as possible and level up and climb up the corporate ladder or be the best entrepreneur that they can be, which again is not the worst thing in the world. It's just the implications of hustle culture can be so damaging to the individual, not only the individual but the system in general. But just hustle culture hurts people. It really does, and it hurts people more than just annoying the shit out of them. It basically strives for you to put making money above anything. And by above anything, I mean above your relationships, above your physical health, above your mental health, above any other responsibilities you might have in your life. The main goal is to grind as much as you possibly can, but there's no safety measures or guidelines to make sure that when people are grinding, they're not grinding down to the bone and have nothing left in the end. I'm only bitter about hustle culture because I, at one point in my life, subscribed to this notion of being as productive as you possibly can. There's 24 hours in the day, bro. You have to use all of those hours. If you're not doing something to evolve in those 24 hours, you're losing, bro. That was me, and I'm nothing short of embarrassed. I really am embarrassed. I'd like to distance myself from this narrative. Let's try this again. Oh, they don't even look like cousins, bro. These are cousins third removed. Oh dear. Oh. Do I just keep going? Yeah. I'm leaving that on my face. We have too much to get through. We're moving on. Inverse to hustle culture, a culture that promotes running yourself into the ground for the purpose of production. We've also seen a rise in self-care, or what we would like to call self-care, which promotes a life of relaxation and rest and rejuvenation and bettering yourself as a human being, which I feel like is a lot of what people who say they don't dream of labor aspire towards. They aspire towards not only partaking in a lot of self-care, but I feel like a lot of the sentiment to a lot of the videos that I've read, a lot of the videos that I've watched, or a lot of the content that I've come across, a lot of people talk about how they want to spend more time investing in self-care and investing in self-growth and bettering themselves as a person, which I totally understand. But the interesting thing, I'm not talking about entirely self-growth, but the interesting thing when it comes to self-care, or the lens that we view it from these days, is how commodified it's become. Ooh, capitalism just gets into everything, man. You can't run. She will find you. You can run, you can hide, she will find you. Basically, self-care nowadays, or okay, not entirely, but like a lot of people's idea of self-care is investing in yourself. And this could mean time-wise, but you know our society, time is money, okay? It could be investing in yourself time-wise. It could be buying things. And this is where I'm talking about the invisible hand of capitalism. I swear, I sound like a conspiracy theorist. Where's my tinfoil hat? You buy things to help you feel good about yourself. You buy a face mask to help unwind and relax. You buy a bath bomb to chill out in the bathtub. You buy clothes to treat yourself. You take yourself for lunches or dinners, or you take yourself on vacation. All these things cost money. And you have to sit down and ask yourself, how much of this self-care is actually for me? Or am I just in turn unwillingly working to feed a market or a system that I didn't even think I was partaking in? Because when you're buying that face mask to chill and unwind, you're not thinking about what went into making that face mask. You're not thinking about all the not hours, because face masks aren't that expensive, but you're not thinking about the time that you spent in to put in the work to be able to afford the time to sit down and put on that face mask. Not only in the buying the face mask, but you have to have time to put on your face mask, so you have to work to free up that time so you can have the time to put on your face mask. I feel like that sentence has been so roundabout, but I hope you understand what I mean. My complaint is that self-care has been heavily monetized, heavily commodified, and it's become something like a product you can buy to help yourself feel better. Even with lots of self-help books, you know, the whole market of self-help, which is greatly problematic to begin with, but I don't even have the time to get into all of that because there's a lot to unpack in the exploitation of people who just want to better themselves as individuals, and all these people who say, I'm gonna make your life great, and just really want to take your money. With hustle culture and self-care, I kind of feel like they're two sides of the same coin, which just comes down to how much work can we as people do. Hustle culture wants us to do as much work as possible, while self-care wants us to do as little work as possible, as little physical work and more in self-betterment. So basically, what kind of work? I shouldn't say how much work we should do, but what kind of work we should be doing. Zooey mama, finding a comfortable position to be sitting. I've been sitting for for so long. Sitting doesn't even feel like a thing anymore. What does it mean to sit down? It hurts. It hurts everywhere. I'm just gonna sit like this for the rest of the video. I'm gonna mansplain to you. If you're interested in things like such as working culture, or you've come across hustle culture or self-care, all these things, I feel like a notion that you might have come across is that humans are inherently lazy. We as human beings don't crave to work, but we crave stasis, we crave calm, we crave relaxation, we just want to be baseline. Like I was saying, they're two sides of the same coin, hustle culture and self-care. With this notion that human beings are inherently lazy, hustle culture strives to combat this laziness, tries to brute force our way out of this inherent state of laziness that humans are said to be at when they're at baseline. Well, self-care culture, is self-care culture a thing? I'm making it a thing. Strives to lean into it, strives to give more time into it. It's like your body craves to continue to relax and continue to be at this state of stasis and just calm, which I fucking disagree with both of those things, but you know, it's fine. It's fine. Everyone's allowed to think what they're allowed to think. That basically brings us down to the main reason why we're discussing this in general, why this is so polarizing, why so many people have an opinion on this. It's not only as something that what someone chooses to give their time into doing, it comes down to labor. Yeah, honestly, I just gave up halfway, you can tell. Anyway, work. That is the main reason why we're all here. We're trying to understand why some people want to work and why some people don't want to work. And to really understand work and the necessity of it, or the unnecessity of it. What's the opposite of necessity? The unusefulness of it? Basically, what is the product of that work? The product of work dictates how useful or useless it is. We have to understand that in capitalism, labor is a means of production. You work to produce things, you work to create things. You work to produce and create things to feed the system so it can be sold and someone buys it, and then, you know, the cycle of consumerism and all that nonsense continues. However, I would argue that it's inherently human to want to work. It's inherently human to want to create. We want to create, we want to innovate, we want to make things. We enjoy work because it's what we like to do. It's just what we as human beings strive for, you know, to keep busy. When someone doesn't have work, they are susceptible to things like depression and all these mental illnesses and just feelings of unworthiness, feelings of uselessness when they're not working. Working capitalism and work in alternative lifestyles or whatever is different, right? Like I was saying, working capitalism is a mean of production. You work to produce things, but the main issue is the product of that work. In capitalism, we don't get to use what we produce, which creates a disconnect. We don't get to use what we produce, so we don't feel connected to that thing. It doesn't feel valuable to us, even though we've spent so much time working towards it. When you spend all your hours working in a corporation, the fruits of that labor, you don't really get to immediately see. And I know you get paid at the end of the day and you get a paycheck and you have a stable income and all those things, but that gratification that you get from making something and having it be there, you don't feel that gratification, which shows the main difference in alternative lifestyles. Because don't be fooled, in alternative lifestyles you're still working, whether it be working on yourself or working on the land. Like a lot of these alternative lifestyles, you're basically doing chores. It's just glorified or romanticized farm work. If you're living the cottagecore lifestyle, a lot of it's like tending to the land, plowing the ground, making your own bread, growing your own fruits, and I don't know, stitching up your own clothes and all those other things. Or even like when it's just working on yourself or investing your time into leisure activities or hobbies or interests you may have. When you're investing your time into those things, you get to immediately see the product that you've created. You get to see the value of your time. When you are making bread, you get to eat that bread and you can see the bread and you're like, oh, this is bread that I spent all my time making and I've tasted it, and whether it tastes like shit or not, doesn't matter. You still spent your time making it and you see the tangible fruit of your labor. You're connected to your work. It has purpose to you because you're able to see that purpose, even with self-improvement, right? If you put in the time, like things such as meditation or mindfulness or whatever method of self-improvement you want to subscribe to or you want to partake in, you end up seeing the results, whether immediate or not. Well, I would say even immediately, because after you meditate, sometimes you immediately feel lighter, you immediately feel more at peace and stuff, and that's why you immediately feel the fruits of that labor and the fruits of your time being invested in, so it doesn't feel so pointless and doesn't feel so useless. You basically put in the work and you receive the material response rather than having it be snatched away, which in capitalism basically always happens. Bro, I can't feel my fucking legs, man. They're dead. They're dead. She's dead. Am I even in frame? I'm too tall to be sitting like this. I need to sit properly. And that's why when people say that human beings are inherently lazy, I just don't buy it, because even in our pursuit to avoid work, we just substituted for a different type of work. You substitute working in an office to tending to the land. You substitute prioritizing increased levels of productivity for hours of meditation, or prioritizing self-growth and mindfulness and all those other things. That just goes to show that human beings do inherently want to work. It's just under capitalism, we've managed to monetize our desire to work and our desire to create and our desire to change things and try and make as much money as possible out of this drive, which is very twisted, but okay. You know the saying, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, basically trying to urge people to monetize their services in the things that they like to do. If you like to paint, you should sell those paintings. If you like to make music, you should sell that music and all of that, which I have my gripes with it, but it's not the worst thing in the world. But in our system, in the capitalist system, bro, take a shot every time I say capitalist. Are you still here with us? I've said that word so much, it doesn't sound like a word. But in our system, we are incentivized to monetize our interests and monetize our hobbies and monetize the things that we love, which takes away from the joy of doing it. When what you love becomes work, you stop loving it. And I feel like a lot of people would agree. If you're doing something as a hobby and then you have to do it to feed yourself and keep a roof over your head and to just generally live and survive, that pressure takes away the pleasures of doing said enjoyable thing. It doesn't end up being something you do to unwind and de-stress and just to improve at or relax and enjoy, but it becomes something you do to survive, and the added pressure and intensity of that just loses the magic of it all, which is sad and jaded. But also you could come up with the argument that you'd rather spend all your time doing something that you're actually interested in than working in something that you're not interested in, and then later finding the few hours that you can to invest in your hobbies. So I guess it just depends, like, pick your poison. If you want to hate what you love or do what you love as little as possible. Our options, man, they suck. Where do we go from here?
What the hell we gonna do now?
At the end of the day, we have to look at our situation realistically. I mean, a lot of people, like I said before, can't afford to not work. They have to work. You have to work to survive. We are in a Panasonic. Unemployment in some places, like for example, my country is at an all-time high. Most people are starving and they don't know how they're going to feed themselves or their families, let alone have the time to think about the luxuries of, I don't know, thinking about the luxuries of investing in more time for self-care. Most people don't even have time to invest anyways. You have a whole graduating class coming into a workforce that is broken in so many senses of the word. You have people in school trying to get degrees but running themselves into debt for this mere prospect of a higher paying job to pay off said debt. We're living in the hell times. Like, what? These are the end times. What the hell? But not to be too depressing, but that's just the general situation of things. The economy is struggling and a lot of people don't have the privileges of not being able to work. So when I do see these rhetorics online, it's like, yeah, I do agree to some extent, and it would be nice to not have to work, but a lot of people do not have that luxury of not working, and it does depress me. And I'm sure it depresses a lot of people when you see people with, I'm not saying people who don't want to work are all privileged, but when it hurts when I see the privileged people who have like richer parents who are able to support their lifestyle, or who have already made their money so they're able to relax and not have to do these things, who are not tied down and do not have to work like every single day of the week and have lots of passive streams of income, so they're able to just chill and focus and create. Or even influencers who say they don't want to work and they don't crave labor. But are you gonna sit here and pretend that creating content isn't labor? Because it is. Planning out a video, scripting it, filming it, editing, that's labor, okay? That's labor. So when you say you don't crave labor, make it make sense. I mean, unless you do none of that yourself, but I don't think that's everyone. There's not much to say in that. It is a nice dream, but it's not realistic for everyone. But it is a nice goal to strive towards. But just because we can't get there right now, I feel like it's not something we should completely ignore, and it's something that we should take into account, and it's something that we should keep at the back of our minds. And we should always ask ourselves why we're doing something. Why? What's the purpose? What's the reason? What's motivating me to do this thing? And make sure that we're just not slaves to a system that doesn't give a crap about us. Because when you stop asking yourself these questions, when you stop having these conversations, and when you stop thinking about these things, you become complacent. And once you become complacent, then the system has won. And you as the individual cease to exist, and you cease to matter, and you cease to have a voice and become replaceable, which some would argue is already replaceable. Stop playing devil's advocating, money. We're trying to wrap up the video. Jesus. And I know that this the painting is very simple today, but we had a lot to talk about, okay? I can't play devil's advocate and talk about capitalism and talk about working lifestyle and all those other things and paint my face at the same time. I'm good at multitasking, but I'm not that good at multitasking. But with that, we have reached the end of the video. If you like this video, make sure to like this video. Comment down below anything you want to say, because I've talked about a lot of things in this video and I would love to know what you guys think about what I have to say. Where do you guys fall in this whole I don't believe in labor. I don't dream of labor. My mind is melted. Think about the whole I don't dream of labor, and what are your stances about it? Is it a lifestyle that you would like to subscribe to? Is it feasible to you? Is it something you are aspiring towards? Let me know, and share this video if you found it interesting and would like to know somebody else's thoughts on it, and make sure to subscribe to see more of my beautiful face every week. You'll see it every single week. It's gonna be here. You want to see more of this? Of course you do. Who wouldn't? If you have enjoyed me sitting down and chatting, find your way to my playlist of crafts and chats, where I sit down and talk about my opinions on things. It's over an hour long. You can just sit there, watch it. I don't know if it's gonna be here or here, or in a little card. Just sit down, watch, chill, unwind, just listen to my soothing voice go up and down about opinions. It's going to be fun. And with that, I'll see you all next time. Bye.
It's 5:50 something and I feel empty inside.